I'd like to introduce you to the amazing Nikki Rausch. So I saw Nikki speaking on stage at Social Media Marketing World this year, and she is incredible. And I thought, wow, we have to get her on for a masterclass because she's really going to help you step up your sales game. So how this is going to run, Nikki's going to give you an incredible presentation. We'll have time for Q&A at the end. And you can always type any questions that you have or interact with us live. Again, that's the speech bubble that is on the bottom right if you're new to this. And with that said, to Nikki.
Okay, thank you. And because I can't see you, I want you to just speak up if there's something in the notes or the chat that I'm missing, okay? But I'm super excited to be here. Thank you so much for this opportunity. We are going to be talking about sales strategies to really change the game in your business. So here is what we're going to go through in our next little bit of time together. I'm going to break down the 5 steps for a successful sales conversation. I'm going to give you a lot of language suggestions in this presentation. And here's my kind of disclaimer about it. The idea isn't for you to talk like me. The idea is to show you how to do it so that you can then take that idea, that example, and create your own. So if I give you a language suggestion, you're like, I don't talk like that. That's okay. You take it and make your own version of it and apply it so that you can experience success in sales. So lots of issuing invitation language. We'll address a little concept of talking at versus talking with and give you examples of how this shows up in your business. And when you switch up your language, the impact that it will make for you. I'm also going to break down creating curiosity and the importance of that. This is the most missed thing that people do in their business. And unless you're able to create curiosity, it is very hard to earn somebody's business. So we'll talk deep about that. We'll talk about pre-framing and the importance of setting up your sales calls for success, and then making sure that you're setting up next steps. So that is what we're going to go through in this little bit of time that we have together. And just really quickly, if this is our first time together, this is their first time experiencing me, a little bit about how I get to be here and talk about this from a place of expertise is I do show up with over 25 years of sales experience. I've had a lot of success in the corporate sales world. I have had my own business now since 2013, teaching selling skills. I have also a pretty extensive background in neuro-linguistic programming. And if that's a new term to you, it's essentially the study of communication. So I show up with my sales background, my background in NLP, and I combine those and I teach people how to have more successful sales conversations. I have been a guest expert on over 350 podcasts at this point. I also have my own podcast, which is a Sales Maven podcast, and I have written 3 books. So when it comes to sales, it's my jam. I love it. I love teaching people how to do it in a way that feels good to them and, more importantly, feels good to the prospect. So that is what we're going to focus on. So diving into content, I teach a 5-step process for a successful sales conversation. I wrote my 3rd book around it. It's called The Selling Staircase. And the reason I teach it as a staircase is because most people understand that you ascend a staircase 1 step at a time. And now I'm going to go deep dive into all 5 steps for you today. But just to give you an idea of what it looks like, we've got step 1, introduction. Step 2, create curiosity. Step 3, the discovery. Step 4, proposal. Step 5, close. And here is where most people make a mistake in the sales process, is they go right from step 1 and they hop all the way up to step 5. Now, just like you wouldn't do that if you were standing in front of a staircase, you wouldn't just stand at the bottom and hop to the top. You certainly wouldn't say to a prospect who is potentially going to buy from you, hey, stand at the bottom of this staircase and, from a standing position, just hop up to the top. They might look at you like, that's crazy. I might bang my shins. That feels unsafe. Like, I don't think I'm going to do that. Now, if you're on the call right now thinking like, Nikki, I have a really strong core. Congratulations. I love if you could do that, but most people won't. And just like in the sales conversation, when people skip steps in the sales conversation as the seller, it often leaves us feeling kind of like, oh, that was icky. We all get these emails, right, that show up in our inbox like, hey, I looked at your YouTube channel. Here's all the things you're doing wrong. You should totally hire me. And the reason that those just go immediately into the delete pile is because they're skipping steps. And as the seller, you don't get to skip steps in a sales conversation. Your job is to earn the business. Your job is to guide people through the process. And that is why The only exception to this rule about skipping steps is if the prospect shows up at a higher step, then you just start with them where they are and then you ascend from there. You don't say like, hey, slow your roll. We got to go back to the first step. That's okay. You start where they are and you work your way up. So let's break down the 5 steps. And again, when you do this, you leave people feeling better about their interaction with you. The last thing you want is to annoy somebody or make them feel confused about who you are and why you're showing up selling to them. So 5 steps. Step 1, introduction. The idea of the introduction is to make a powerful first impression, and a positive, powerful first impression, I mean to say. And here's one of the things I find is oftentimes when I'm talking to business owners and I ask them, do you know what it's like when somebody has that first interaction with you? They look at me like, what do you mean? Like, I'm the one who's nervous about having an interaction with them. Well, they might be nervous about having an interaction with you. They might not feel safe with you yet. So what can you do in that first bit of time of somebody interacting with you, whether it's on your website or whether it's in person with you or whether it's on online social media? What can you do to set them and you up for success? Because people are making judgments about you they say in the first 2 minutes, people have already decided how they feel about you and whether or not you're trustworthy. 2 minutes, that's not very much time. So what's it like when somebody interacts with you for the first time? What's that experience? And is there anything you could do to improve it for the other person? Because when you make a positive first impression with somebody, it's likely they're willing to kind of go to this next step with you, which step 2 in the process is create curiosity. This is the most missed step. Most people, if I ask them, do you know how to create curiosity when you're talking about your business, when you're talking about who you are and what you offer, they look at me like, what do you mean create curiosity? Well, if you're not able to create curiosity, it is super hard to ever earn somebody's business. So your job in a sales conversation or with a prospect is to create enough curiosity for them to lean in, for them to go, tell me more about that. Or what does that mean? Or like, how would that apply to me? Now we're in a real conversation with somebody. So we have to be able to create curiosity. And I'm going to show you how to do this today. When you create curiosity, what happens is people start to give buying signals. Now, you may have noticed I wrote my second book about buying signals. Buying signals, I'm going to talk a little bit more about them here as we get through in the presentation. But your job is to create curiosity, look for those buying signals, and then act on them. So when somebody gets curious about who you are and what you offer, and they start giving you a buying signal, the next logical step in a sales conversation is what I call the discovery. Now, you might call it something different, and that's okay. You might call it your sales call. Maybe you call it a consult call. I actually don't care what you call it. I care what you do during this step of the conversation. And what you want to do here is to identify quickly, am I talking to an ideal client? That's the first thing. The second thing is, based on the questions that I'm asking, can I identify that I have a solution or an offer that is going to meet their need and solve their problem, give them the solution that they're looking for? And the third thing to be done in a discovery call is to ask for permission to put an offer in front of them. So in your discovery, when you can identify, yes, I'm talking to the right person, yes, I have a solution for them, then I'm going to ask permission to put the offer in front of them. Then they're ready for step 4. And that is the proposal. This is actually where the selling happens. This is when you're standing in your place of expertise. You're going to make a recommendation as to what is the logical solution for their problem. What is the thing that you offer that they can now purchase that is going to allow them to meet that need, that problem, like solve the problem, get the solution that they're looking for? That happens in step 4 of a sales conversation. Now, I should also mention that sometimes these steps can progress during one conversation. You can go through all 5 steps with somebody. Other times it might take a little bit of like multiple meetings before you get to the place where you actually move them to step 5, which is close. This is the second most missed step in a sales conversation. A lot of people will make it through step 1, 2, 3, and maybe even to 4, but where they usually like fall down is on the close. They never get close language out of their mouth. And if you don't get close language out of your mouth, people can't decide to hire you, to pay you money, to like take your offer. So when it says close, it doesn't necessarily mean like close the deal. This is not a hard sell here. What it does mean though is that by getting that close language out of my mouth to the prospective client, now they can make a decision. They can decide, yes, I'd like to move forward with you, or maybe they've got a question. Great, I need to answer that question in order to earn their business. Maybe when I issue close language, they'll have an objection. Okay, I need to know what their objection is. I can't possibly overcome an objection until I know what it is as the salesperson. So that happens because I close. Now, some other things can happen when you go to close. They might say no. That happens too. Great. At least now I know, and I don't have to spend any more time and energy trying to earn somebody's business who's never going to buy from me. The last thing that will happen once you issue close language is they'll say, I need to think about it. And I'm going to give you an answer to that towards the end of the presentation. But I wanted you to see these 5 steps. And as I went through these, if there's some part of you that's on this call right now thinking like, I don't think I know how to create curiosity, or I'm not sure what questions to ask in the discovery, that is just information. Don't beat yourself up for not knowing. Like, when we know better, we do better. If you've never seen this before or had this laid out for you before, it isn't expected that you know it. But identifying where are those places that may be a little bit of attention and some kind of additional skill or resource would be helpful for you in working with more of your ideal clients, closing more of that business that you want to close. So as we go through these, again, if there's some part of you that's like, I'm not sure I'm asking the right questions, well, let's figure out a way to get you those right questions so that you can close more deals. Or I'm not sure if I'm making a powerful first impression. Like, pay attention to that. And the places where you're like, I am crushing that one. Good. That's just a pat on the back for you to recognize. Now, the important thing is when we know what step we're on with the prospect, the idea is how do you move them from one step to the next? And this is really the easiest way to close a sale, and the easiest way to move somebody through the process is that at every step of the way, you're going to issue an invitation. Because remember, it's your job as the seller to earn the business. So you want to make it so easy and so crystal clear for the prospect to know what to do or say next. Because if they don't know what to do, I don't know if you've heard this, but a confused mind doesn't buy. So we want to make sure it's really clear what that next step is. So let me break down a little bit around invitation, and then I'm going to show you some examples of invitation language. So when I say issuing an invitation, there's a few things to consider. First, an invitation is usually in the form of a question. I believe in asking permission. I don't believe in just selling to somebody who I don't have permission to sell to. And by asking in the form of a question, it helps the person who's getting the question asked of them know what to do or say next. And it doesn't feel like they're being dragged along the sale. It feels like they're empowered. They're making the decisions. You're showing a respect to this person when you issue an invitation. And the reason I teach this as invitation, by the way, is that most people like to be invited to things. I don't know about you. Do you like to be invited? Like if you knew that a good friend of yours was hosting a get-together, some kind of a gathering with friends, and maybe you already know like you're going to be out of town that weekend, but isn't it still nice to get the invitation so that you can decide whether or not you're going to attend or whether you're not going to let your friend know that you'll be out of town? But on the flip side, imagine your friend is having a get-together and you don't even get an invite. Now, maybe you wouldn't have been able to go, but doesn't it make you feel a little bit like, I feel left out here? And the thing about sales is when you issue invitations, it's no pressure on you or on the other person. It's just an invitation. They can decline it. So it takes the pressure off. So I love this idea of issuing invitations. So you do it in the form of questions. And again, I'm going to show you some examples of this. But the invitation has to be clear so the prospect knows what to do or say next. Because again, confused mind doesn't buy. Oftentimes you'll ask an invitation question and it could be answered in a yes or no, but it usually will, the person who's answering it will take it one step further and they'll actually take action on it. So yes, they will give you an answer, but they'll actually take action if it's something they're interested in. So as I show you the invitation language, this may make sense, but I'll say to you, an example I often give people is, let's say that you're home on a Saturday and you're relaxing on the couch. and you think you hear the doorbell, but you're relaxed and you really don't want to get up and like check and see who's there. So you just say to somebody else who lives in the home with you, hey, was that the doorbell? Because you knew the doorbell rang, but you actually just didn't want to go get it. So what does the other person in your home do? They go, oh, let me check. And then they go and check the door for you, right? Invitation language works like that. It gets people to take action. And that's why, another reason why I love it. And sometimes it may require asking permission. I've mentioned permission now a few times. Let me show you some examples of invitation language so you can see how this shows up. For instance, I'm having a conversation with somebody. I might say to them, would you be interested to learn more about ways we could work together? Or would you be interested to learn more about what I offer or my company? Or would you be interested to learn more about ways that we could serve you in some way? That's an invitation. It allows the other person to say, yes, tell me more, or thanks, no thanks. Either way is okay, but we've got to get that invitation language out. Here's another one. Should we schedule a time to chat about this? It's just a question. It's just an invitation. They can decline. But by asking this, now you're much more likely to get a time scheduled where we actually chat about X, Y, and Z. And that's how you're going to earn somebody's business. Here's another one. This one's a little more direct. Are you ready to get started now? Pretty direct, right? But yet, if you don't ask somebody this question, oftentimes they won't make a decision. Not because they don't want to hire you, not because they don't want to work with you, but because, frankly, we're overloaded with decisions. Our brains are overloaded. And if we don't have to make a decision, if we don't have an easy decision put right in front of us, we'll postpone making it. I always say, like, I don't know if you've heard that term decision fatigue before. Have you ever heard somebody say to you, like, oh, I think I have decision fatigue?
Yeah, I was saying 100%. That's a real thing.
Yeah. They say that the average adult makes a certain number of decisions every single day. So those of you who are listening, and if you will in the chat, I can't see the chat, but Emma will see it. In the chat, think about, on average, how many decisions do you think you make a day? Emma, you're going to have to tell me if anybody's throwing an answer in there.
Type it in the chat, guys. How many decisions have you got to make a day, do you think, on average?
Okay, good guess. Do we have any others?
Tony says 125.
Very specific, Tony. I love it. Okay.
Got another one that says 10,000.
Yeah.
Got another one that says 1,000.
Great.
Kevin says 50.
Okay. All right.
Any more?
I love this. Thank you for participating. I'm so grateful. They say the average adult makes between 30 and 60,000 decisions a day. So people have decision fatigue. Now you know why. And if you're thinking like, do I really make that many? It's every little thing is a decision. So our brains are tired. And frankly, our brains are a little lazy. And if we don't have to make a decision, we will postpone it because we have so many other decisions to make. So if you really want to work with somebody, if you really want to earn their business, you have to put a decision in front of them that is easy for them to say yes to. So are you ready to get started now is an easy yes versus like, hey, let me call you next week and you can have thought about it and then we'll decide then. Chances are you're going to call them next week and they're not going to answer because they're busy with other things. So you put this invitation language in front of them. You make it easy for them to make a decision in the moment when they're focused on it. You increase your chances of earning their business or moving to the next step in the sales conversation. Here's the last one. This is more like after we've had a conversation, I know a little bit more about you and your needs. I might say to you, based on what you shared, you'd be an ideal candidate for my Kickstarter program, for instance. And then I would issue the invitation. Is that something you'd like to learn more about? Now, where most people do this is they say like, hey, based on what you've shared, you're an ideal candidate for the Kickstarter program. Let me tell you all about the Kickstarter program and why you should buy it. And people are like, oh, I'm not even sure I want to hear about it yet. But if you say to them, you'd be an ideal client for the Kickstarter program, is that something you'd like to learn more about? And they get to decide, yes, tell me more. Now they're more likely to hear and want to hear about what it is that you're sharing. So invitation language is crucial to your success. All right, here's a little secret. And this kind of goes 100% to what we're talking about with decision fatigue. Most people will not buy from you until you invite them. So as the seller, if you really want to work with somebody, your job is to issue that invitation. and then just wait and see what they say next. They might say yes, they might say no. Either way's okay. At least now you know. And at least now they had the opportunity to make a decision. All right, we're going to shift gears just a little bit because I mentioned this idea of talking at people versus talking with. I am of the belief that sales isn't something that you do to another person. Sales actually is something you do with another person. So instead of being the person who feels like I got to show up in a meeting, in a sales presentation, and I have to be the monkey and dance and impress this person and convince them to buy from me, instead, I want to show up and have real conversation with people. I want there to be a balance of power. I don't want to give the client all the power because frankly, they'll abuse it. I don't want to act like I have all the power in the conversation because frankly, they'll go find someone else to buy from that makes them feel better. So we need to have some balance of power. And the way that you can balance out power in a conversation is by having real conversations, talking with people instead of at people. So I'm just about to show you some examples of talking at, and then what would it look like if you change up the language so it's with instead of at. As I show these to you, if there's some part of you that's thinking like, oh, that's me, I always say that or I always write that. Please don't beat yourself up about it. Again, it's just for you to decide, are you willing to try something new to see if it will have a positive impact? The other thing is, I don't want you to sound like everybody else in your field. I want you to stand out, let your uniqueness come through. And sometimes by changing up your language so you don't sound like everybody else is a way to make you stand out, to capture their attention enough for you then to present your unique offer. We got to stop talking at people because they'll stop listening. We get talked at all day long. Yeah, somebody is saying to them, let me know. You're essentially saying like, I'm so important that you need to do all the work. Let me know when you're available. Let me know your decision about X, Y, and Z. Let me know if you'd like to. That's talking at somebody and it's making a command. If you want to talk with people, here's how you change up this statement. You don't say, let me know. You say, are you available to meet on Monday at 3? Or have you made a decision? You ask a question. Because if you don't ask questions, you won't get answers. You have to ask questions. Instead of let me know if you'd like to know more about XYZ, no. Would you be interested in learning more about? Now their brain can actually answer. This is the difference of talking with people versus talking at people. I'm going to show you a few more examples. When you talk to everyone, you talk to no one. And unfortunately, this is super common. Some of this is the way that we write. Like we think, oh, well, everybody's going to see my post on social media, so I should talk to everyone. But now I can't see your hands here, but you can raise hands for Emma and she can say, how many of you sit around with a group of friends or coworkers and scroll social media as a group? Anybody? I'm imagining I'm getting crickets now. Like we don't do this. We don't sit around and scroll social media together. Now, how many of you sit and read your email in a group setting? Like, right? But yet people send newsletters, they post on social media and they say, hey, everyone. Like, who's everyone? It's just me, Nikki, sitting in my office, right? You're just you, you're just Emma, you're just Tony, you're just the person sitting in your office or doing whatever it is you're doing on your phone. So if you're talking to everyone, it's super easy to ignore. Like if somebody's just talking to everybody, like, oh, they're not talking to me. Hey, everyone, you're all invited to XYZ, or you're all going to want to know about this new thing I'm doing. Who's you all? It's just me. When you talk to a person, it feels personal. So in your messages, put people's names. Like, hey, that's what's so great about automated email systems, right? You can put people's name in there. But even on social media, you could just say you are invited. Like you don't have to say you all because they're not reading it as a group. You think they are because you're posting it and you think all these people are seeing it, but they're looking at it as an individual. So talk to the individual. And instead of you're all going to want to know about, instead ask the question, is this something you would want to know about? Talk to the person. Now, how you'll know this works if you'll change up your language is, especially in your emails, if you're sending out an email to everybody on your on your email list. And I don't care if you have a list of 100 people. I don't care if you have a list of 100,000 people. If you use language like you're just writing it to a reader, how you know it works is people will start responding as if you are talking to them. I get this all the time in my messages. People respond to an email that I send out to my whole list, and they'll be like, thanks for asking, Nikki, and they'll give me the answer. It's like the email just went to them because in their mind, it did. So we got to start talking to a person instead of talking to everyone. Most people are way more interested in themselves than they are in you. This is just human nature. And how you know this is true, this is my example of how I know this is true, is if you have recently been in your car trying to get somewhere and there's a bunch of traffic in front of you, have you ever thought like, what is up with all these people? Why are they in my way? Like they're creating a traffic jam. If they could all just move so I could get to where I'm going, right? And like we think these things, but what we never really think about is all the people that are behind us that are thinking the same thing about us. Like to them, you are traffic, just like all the people in front of you are traffic. If you want to engage somebody, it can't be about you. It has to be about them because they're thinking about themselves. So here is a really common phrase that people love to write and say to people is, I want to talk to you about X, Y, and Z. I want to tell you all about this new offer I have, or I want to let you know about this program that we're launching. That is not interesting to a reader. That is not interesting to somebody who doesn't care about you yet, that maybe you don't have a relationship with. So instead of telling people what you want, I got one this morning, by the way, from this person. I don't know this person. And they started off by saying, Nikki, I would love to tell you X, Y, and Z. And I was like, why do I care what you would love? I don't even know who you are. So instead, if you want to engage people, instead of telling them what you want, ask them questions, because this is how you engage a brain. Would you be open to talking about X, Y, and Z? Or would you consider us scheduling a time to have a conversation about X, Y, and Z? Or would you be interested to know? If you say to somebody, I want to tell you about something, they're probably like, oh, great. But if you say, would you be interested to know? And you pause before you say anything else, most of the time they're doing this with their head. Like, yeah, I'm interested to know. They don't even know what you're going to say. They're much more engaged in the conversation. So in sales, we got to talk with people. We cannot just talk at them. They don't want to be talked at. All right. Let's talk about creating curiosity. I mentioned this is the most missed step in the sales conversation. Most people don't think about it. And I teach it as it's the difference between how you call a dog and how you call a cat. Okay, don't leave yet. Stick with me for just a moment. Let me explain it before you think like, who's this crazy lady doing this presentation for us today? The idea is, if you think about, I don't know, do I have any dog lovers in the room? If you think about when you want to get your dog's attention, have you ever noticed that you tend to change your demeanor? You change like your voice. You do these things where instead of being like, hey dog, you go like, come here boy. You act really excited. Like, come here boy. Like, come on, come on. Hey, hey. And dogs love that energy. They're like, oh, I don't even know what's going to happen, but I'm so in. Maybe I'm getting a ride. Maybe I'm getting a treat. Maybe I'm getting a bath. Don't care. When we think we're creating curiosity for people, we sometimes show up with what I call dog calling energy. We're like, I'm just so excited to talk to this person and I can't wait to tell them all the things they need to know about X, Y, and Z. And people go like, ugh. They push away. It's like, oh, that's like too intense, too much for me. So if you want to pique someone's curiosity, you cannot have dog calling energy. Nothing wrong with dog calling energy in certain instances, but not to create curiosity. If I've got any cat lovers in the room, think about if you want to get a cat's attention, you change your demeanor, you change the things you do. You do this little thing where you go, here, kitty, kitty, here, kitty, kitty. And the thing about cats is they don't even come to that. But at least you've got their attention enough for them to decide whether or not they want to continue the conversation. So to create curiosity, this is just this first step in getting started. I actually teach a whole course on creating curiosity, but this first step that I'm going to give you If you've never heard about it before, creating curiosity, this will be something that you can immediately do. And I like to teach things that you can immediately do so you can see success with them. So there's a few things you want to do. You want to have what I call here kitty kitty responses to really simple questions. So the easiest way to do this, it's a two-step approach. You're going to tailor your answer to your common questions. I'm going to show you an example of this, so bear with me here for just a second. You're going to tailor your answer to a common question just to see if the other person leans in, asks a question, gives you a what does that mean kind of thing, okay? And your answer, by the way, can only be 1 or 2 sentences. Anything more than 3 sentences when you answer the common question, you're in dog calling mode. You're in word vomit mode. People don't want to be word vomited on and they don't want to be called like dogs. So we can only give an answer that's 1 or 2 sentences, just enough for the other person to have their interest piqued and decide whether or not they want to continue the conversation, okay? This is going to be a game changer. Creating curiosity is like building a muscle. And if you want to build a muscle, like if you've never done a push-up before, it's unrealistic to think that you're going to put yourself down on the ground and 100 push-ups, no problem. Maybe some of you can do this. But most of us, if we've never done a push-up, we're going to start with 1, right? Maybe. It takes effort. And just like creating curiosity, you got to build the muscle. You got to practice. You got to work it out. And then you'll be able to do it easier and easier and easier. So I'm going to give you the easiest way to do it first. Okay. And I mentioned it's how you answer a common question. So here's a common question. Anybody have been asked this today or this week even a few times? The how are you question? Think about how you might answer this question that could potentially pique somebody's interest. And the answer you're going to give is something you actually want to talk about, okay? So what could you say to the how are you? I'm going to show you an example of it. But instead of having just a fine how are you answer, that doesn't actually create any conversation. That doesn't pique any curiosity. So what's something you could say right now that somebody might go what does that mean? Or tell me more about that. And if you give your here kitty kitty response and the other person's that's nice, and they just continue on with the conversation, please don't stop them and be hey, I just gave you a here kitty kitty response. You're supposed to ask me a question. No, just continue on with the conversation and then look for an opportunity to create it again, possibly in another part of the conversation. So if somebody asks me, how are you, Nikki, right now, I might say something like, oh, I'm great. I just launched a new workshop on asking the right questions to earn business. It's just 1 sentence, right? Now somebody might be well, who's the workshop for? Or what does that mean, asking questions to earn business? Now it opens the door for me to actually talk about it, right? That's all I'm doing. I'm just seeing in a conversation, am I talking to somebody who could potentially find value in what it is that might help them in their business, something that I offer? Now, I mentioned you can do this anywhere and everywhere. I do it sometimes when I'm ordering my tea from Starbucks, right? I went in to have my teeth cleaned and my hygienist, she asked me the how are you question. So I usually have an answer for the week, that I just give to anybody. And so I gave her my answer and she had her hands in my mouth and she started giving me all these buying signals. We're going to talk about that next. Now, I didn't go into my hygienist thinking oh, I'm going to convince her to buy from me. No, I just gave her my answer. And I would have never thought that my hygienist would need help with sales, but turns out she had a side business and she did need help with sales. So good thing I gave the answer. So you can do it anywhere. Here's one more example is this question, how's business, right? What are you going to say right now? Instead of just, it's fine, it's slow, it's great. That's not enough. Give something more for the other person to potentially ask you a follow-up question. So if somebody said to me, how's business? I might say, oh, it's fantastic. I was just featured on a podcast that gets 100,000 downloads each episode. Now, does that maybe elicit a follow-up question from somebody? They might say, what did you talk about? Or what was the podcast? Or what does downloads mean? What's a podcast, right? Who knows what they're going to say next? But at least it opens the door for us to have a conversation about something that may lead for me to identify, am I talking to a potential client or not? Now, back to my dentist example. I always say in my dentist office, there's this big poster in the bathroom that says, you don't have to brush all your teeth, only the ones you want to keep. And my take on this is you don't have to create curiosity with every person you're talking to. Only the people you want to continue the conversation with, or continue to build relationship, or possibly earn their business, okay? Now, when you create curiosity for somebody and it piques their interest, buying signals are the result. Now, buying signals are verbal and nonverbal cues that indicate interest from somebody. Buying signals are that follow-up question that makes somebody go like, oh, I wonder if that's something I need, or, oh, gosh, what do you charge for that? Or, oh, how can somebody buy XYZ from you? These are buying signals. Now, I wrote my second book about buying signals because most people miss them. So if you're able to pique curiosity and people give you a buying signal, your job is to act on it immediately in the moment, because that's when they've got their interest piqued. So I don't have time to go through all the buying signals in the book. Like I said, I wrote the book about it. There are 17 of them in the buying, and you don't even have to go buy the book. I'm going to give you all 17 today. So that QR code or that little like yoursalesmaven.com/buying signals, you can go download. It's a PDF. I have all 17 of them in there for you. Because if you're just hearing about buying signals right now and you're not sure what they all are or what to do when you get them, I want you to have this because it could change your business. Just this. If this is the only thing you do from our training together today, please go grab this resource and please just read through them and be on the lookout for buying signals. Because when people give them and you follow up with them, you have such a bigger, better chance of earning their business. Okay? So that was step 2 in the selling staircase, right? Of create curiosity, buying signals happen. Step 3 is where we move to discovery. And here is where people tend to make a little bit of a mistake, is they don't think about the first thing that I should do in a conversation when somebody has indicated some kind of interest is to create safety. And I know that sounds a little like, is Nikki being woo-woo? I promise this is not woo-woo. But we have as human nature, fight, flight, or freeze. If we don't feel safe with people, if we're not comfortable in a conversation, we go into fight, flight, or freeze. So in order for you to be able to have a real conversation with somebody where they're revealing about how to earn their business or what the problem is that they're struggling with, your job is to create safety first and foremost. So I'm going to show you a really simple way to create safety. It's known as pre-framing. This comes from my background in neurolinguistic programming, where we learn that pre-framing is worth a ton of reframing. And if you can pre-frame at the start of that step 3 in the selling staircase conversation, that discovery step, you create safety and you set the stage so the other person knows what's going to happen. And that may be true. And they may be nervous having a conversation with you. So we need to put them at ease as much as possible so they can be really present in the conversation. So here's an example of a pre-frame. Now, again, I'm showing you language here. And if there's some part of you that's like, that doesn't work for me, change it up. When I talk with clients and I ask them, like, are you able to convert 75% of your consult calls? And they go, 75%? Like, no, I'm not even converting 20%. The first next question I ask them is, are you pre-framing your call? And anybody who's not converting at 75% or more, their answer is always no, I'm not pre-framing. So this is crucial. And again, whether you like my language or not, learning to do this can make a huge difference. So here's an example of a pre-frame. Thank you for your time today. The purpose of our call is to chat about what's going on for you and see if what I offer is the right next step. We're scheduled to chat for about, and then I insert the amount of time, 20 minutes, maybe 25, 30 at the most. Does that still work in your schedule? I check to see. Because the last thing I want is somebody in a conversation with me thinking like, I really have to go in like 15 minutes. I have a meeting. Should I say something to Nikki about this or should I let her just keep talking? Right? Like I want to know if they're worried about time. So I'm going to check in, make sure this still works in their schedule. Get like a, yes, it still works or whatever they're thinking. I've got to like get that out of the way so they can be present in the conversation. Then I'm going to ask permission to lead. I don't want to let the client lead the discovery or the consult call. I need to lead it. It's my job to guide it. So then I'm going to say to them, next thing is, In order for this time to be meaningful and productive for you, is it okay if I start with a few quick questions? This is me saying, like, I'm asking your permission to take the lead. When you do this, it sets you and your prospect up for success in your sales conversation. Now, here's a mistake. People then think I ask a question, I get their answer, and I immediately start offering a solution. No. In this part of the conversation, during the discovery, there is no selling. It's just eliciting information. I'm asking my right fit questions to identify that I'm talking to an ideal client, and I'm asking my expertise questions so that I know that I'm planting seeds in the mind of the person of like, oh, I'm talking to an expert here. I'm talking to somebody who can solve my problem and help meet my need. So the idea is to not ask a question, sell, ask another question, sell some more, ask another question, sell some more. It's like, no, I'm going to ask my set list of questions. Then once I've determined, yes, I'm talking to an ideal client. Yes, I have a solution for them. I'm then going to ask permission before I put any kind of offer in front of them. Okay? So this is how I move from discovery, step 3, to step 4, which is the proposal. I'm going to say this. This is the invitation. Based on what you've shared, I do have a recommendation of how we might work together. Would you be interested in talking through that? I'm going to get there like, yes, before I start making any kind of offer. So really, once I'm in step 4, that's where the selling happens. That's when I can be the expert. I can make a recommendation on what the right solution for them is. Whatever that close language is, I'm going to issue it with the proposal. Okay, now I mentioned that sometimes people will say this. Have you ever gotten this? I need to think about it. A lot of times people get scared off about this and they think, oh, that's just their nice way of saying no. I would caution you from having that approach. And I want you to check to see, can we still earn the business? So if somebody says to me, I need to think about it, I might ask them first, is there any additional information that would be helpful for you to have so that you can make a decision? I would check in with that. And then I would say this, great. About how much time do you think you'll need? Let's go ahead and schedule a circle back call now. That way I can answer any additional questions that come to mind and we can decide on best next steps for working together. And then I suggest a date and a time and I get it on my calendar and theirs. So if I just say like, oh, I'll call you next week, I don't know about you, but if somebody just calls me randomly out of the blue, I don't answer my phone. If you're on my schedule, I'll answer the call, but otherwise, no. And your clients are probably the same way, or your prospects. So your job is to make it easy for them. They might cancel the call because they thought about it and they're not going to hire you. Great, bless and release. Don't waste time on people who don't want to buy from you. And if they take that time to think about it and you get on that circle back call with them, you have a much better chance of earning their business. We talked about issuing invitations, gave you some examples of talking at versus talking with, gave you some examples of creating curiosity, pre-framing the importance of creating safety in that call, and making sure you're scheduling next steps before you end that conversation if you don't close the sale. Now, for anybody who wants more, I mentioned a little bit about questions and the importance of questions. So I do have an offer. It's a super low priced offer because this will make a difference in your discovery, the questions that you ask. So I have a little mini training for you. It's 11 mini modules. You can go through it in probably an hour or so of your time, but it will probably change the way you frame your questions and set up your discovery call. So if you want it, it's called Seal the Deal. You can get it by scanning that QR code or go to the bit.ly, Seal the Deal 47. In there, I'm going to show you what are the right fit questions. How do you form your expertise questions? How do you transition from the question to that next step? And then what do you say if you identify that I'm actually not talking to the right person? This isn't an ideal fit for me. How do I bless and release in a really kind way? So that's all included in that training. And if you'd like it, you're welcome to get it. And now we're going to open it up to questions. And I'd love to hear what were your questions and or what was your takeaway from this training?
Amazing, Nikki.
Thank you.
So good. So guys, if you want to type your questions in the chat, you click on the speech bubble again on the bottom right, or you can just unmute yourself and ask Nikki live, whichever way you feel most comfortable with. This is your chance. I have a question for you, if that's okay, Nikki.
Okay.
So a lot of our SmarterQueue customers are solo business owners. They're busy, they haven't got time, and that's why they use SmarterQueue, right? Is to make their social media consistent. And you mentioned about the discovery call and then moving them through to a close. Would you recommend these kind of busy solo business owners to have like a one call close, or do you think that it always works better having a short discovery call and then scheduling a later call to share more details about their product, solution, or service?
I love this question. And I will say that it is going to be dependent on your type of business. I love if you can close on one call, right? Like move them through and actually close the deal on the call. But there are some businesses out there where it requires a proposal, for instance. Like you need something formal for them to like work through or look through or see the options. So if that's the case, if you're doing like a formal proposal, then it's going to require multiple calls. So you're going to schedule a time to review the proposal with them before you end that call. So if you say to them, I'll send the proposal to you, you'll have it by Friday. Let's schedule a call for Monday just to walk it through, answer any questions that come to mind for you, and then we'll talk about next steps. So it's important that you schedule, at least attempt to schedule that next call before like agreeing to send a proposal to them. But a lot of times I find that business owners, either because they're uncomfortable with the money conversation or there's some part of them that gets nervous in the sales, so they try to break it up into a bunch of mini calls, but they actually don't need to. And it's kind of like if you're playing tennis with a prospect and you knock the ball over to their side of the court, and now you're expecting them to like lob the ball back to you, the chance of the client actually hitting the ball back, it goes down every time you have to schedule another call. Like at some point they're going to drop the ball, they're going to forget, or they're going to, you're going to get pushed below their fold in the email and they're not going to do it. So if you have the ability and to close on the call, you want to close. And here's the other thing I'll say about this is sometimes people say, but Nikki, I need them to sign the contract first. Because I book people all the time without them signing the contract. I'll take their money, they're in, we'll get their first session scheduled, then I'll send them the contract. I don't think I've ever had anybody not sign the contract after that. Now, if they did come back and say, look, I'm not signing your contract, I would just refund the money. Like it wouldn't be that big of a deal. It's a much bigger deal for me to get their buy-in and get them going versus trying to postpone it.
That's amazing. That's super helpful. Thank you. Sales always felt fake and too transactional, but I like framing as a conversation.
Thank you, Stefan. I appreciate that. It should never feel fake or transactional because nobody wants to feel like all you see me as is a big wallet walking around or a big dollar sign on my face.
Exactly. I'm 100% with you. It says, Caroline, we've got another one. She says, what is your advice for getting a client to sign on the SOW? They tend to want us to start work without signing first.
Okay, so without signing the statement of work, Carolyn, here's what I would say to that is you want to be really clear as to what the next step is. So when you issue that close language, like, is this something you'd like to get started? And they go, yeah, can you start now? And you go, whether you can start now or now. Let's say you could start now. And you go, yeah, we can absolutely start now. Step one, though, is for you to sign the statement of work. So let's get that done first, and then we'll get to step two. So go ahead and do that now. And actually, what I just did there is what's known as an embedded command from NLP. The now is like embedded command. I'm basically saying like, do it, but in a nice way.
I absolutely love that. Okay, we've got another one. Tony says, wonderful information. Can you please give a definition of pre-frame so I fully understand?
Okay, so Tony, help me if I don't get this answer for you. Don't give up on me. I'll keep going until I get it for you. But pre-frame is this idea of setting the stage of what's going to happen. So it creates safety for the person because they now know what is going to happen in the conversation. So the example of a pre-frame is like, again, thank you for taking the time for us to chat today, stating the purpose. The purpose of our call is X, Y, Z, right? So now they know what the purpose is. That's pre-framing. It's kind of like if you've ever heard that saying, if you're giving a presentation, they say, tell them what you're going to tell them, and then tell them what you told them. It's kind of that in the essence of the sales conversation. So the purpose of our call is to do this. So this is what we're going to do. And then you ask about the time, because again, we want to confirm. It also allows you to kind of put some boundaries. I always say, like, if you think about if you go bowling, it's like putting the bumpers up so we stay in the lane. Because sometimes people think a consult call is a pick your brain, like, Tony, I just want to get all your expertise for free. No. So by pre-framing, it sets the stage. This is not a free coaching call. This is not a free, like, I'm the expert and I'm just giving you all the information for free. So when you say, now, in order for this time to be meaningful and productive for you, can I start with a few quick questions? That sets the stage of what's going to happen. So this is not just like, hey, show up and ask Nikki 1,000 questions for free. It's like, no, we're going to find out what's going on for you, see if what I offer is a good fit. We're scheduled to chat for about 20 minutes. Does that still work for you? Yes. Now, I'm going to ask permission to lead the meeting, which is it to make it meaningful and productive? Can I ask you a few questions? So,
Okay, I'll wait for Tony to type in the chat. We've got another one. I hope that I'm saying your name right. Lonsky? Cool name. Tony says yes. Great. Thank you.
Okay. Thanks, Tony.
Got another one. Thank you so much, Nikki. This is really clear and doable. I attend quite a few networking meetings and can really see how I could adapt what you've been showing with those kind of face-to-face situations. But I do struggle a bit with mindset when I'm actually in the room, especially with remembering everything in the moment. Do you have any advice for how to integrate this kind of approach into those live conversations without feeling overwhelmed or going blank?
Yes. So here's my suggestion is, first and foremost, pick one thing to do in the networking meeting. Like, instead of feeling like I got to do all the things, that feels so overwhelming. But pick the one thing. So if you're like, oh, I'm going to come up with my answer. If somebody asks, like, what do you do or what brought you here today? What could be your curiosity creating response? Come up with it before you go into the room, and then you'll be prepared to, like, practice it and say it. And if you feel like you're stumbling or tripping over your words during that moment, like, give yourself some grace and go, either I'll slow down or I'll just abandon it for now and come back to it for the next time, right? Like, because it is like building a muscle and it does take practice. So come up with one thing. And then I will say, because I'm an introvert, so going into a networking meeting for me feels like, oh, it feels like a lot. Like, I got to prepare myself ahead of time. I'll give one little secret that I do. When I go into a networking meeting, because I'm nervous and also I'm shy, people don't always think that, because they're like, oh, Nikki, you talk about sales. Put me on a stage and I'm happy. Put me in a room where I have to talk to a bunch of people, just like, I get so nervous. So one of the things I do in a networking meeting, because again, I'm there to build business, just like you're going to build your business. So I always act as if the event is mine, like I'm the host. And I think, if these people were coming into my home, what would I do to extend myself to make them feel comfortable? So I just act like it's my event, not like, oh, I'm a big deal. I'm like, I'm here to, make sure everybody sees me. I extend myself and say things like, hi, welcome. It's so nice to see you. Or I'm glad you're here. I say things like that. And then people go, like, it elevates, like, all of a sudden they think, oh, who's this credible person who's going out of her way to make me feel comfortable? And I find that then people will be like, oh, well, Nikki, is this your event? Or I'll be like, oh, I'm just an attendee, but I just am so excited to meet you. Like, I'm not trying to take over. I just think, if these people were coming to my home, if I was having a dinner party or an event or something, how would I extend myself? I would want them to feel welcome. And sometimes it's just a matter of me saying, like, is there anybody I could introduce you to? Or can I connect you with somebody in the room? Like, sometimes that's all, like, you're going to get. Like, that's all I have the energy for. Act like it's your event. See what happens.
What an amazing tip.
Oh,
Thank you.
good. You're
We have
welcome.
got few more questions coming in. So,
Okay.
Aditi, thank you so much, Nikki. I have already followed some of your cold advice. What would you do if a potential client tries to lead the call? How would you respond to that? Gold.
Oh, I love this question so much. So I always say, take your cues from your client, or the prospect in this case. So if they say, well, I just want to see if we're a good fit first. I have a couple questions. I would say, great. What's your first question? So I would ask, and then I might answer their question, and then I might just insert one of mine. Because the other thing in sales, again, there needs to be a balance of power. You don't give them all the power, because they'll not want to buy from you. They'll go find someone else that they feel more comfortable with. So the person who's asking the questions, this is a little secret, the person who's asking the questions in a conversation holds the power. So I'm fine with them having their opportunity to ask questions, but I'm also going to take my opportunity to ask questions, because just like they're identifying whether or not I'm the right fit for them, I'm also identifying whether or not they're a good fit for me. In sales, I don't want to give them all the power. I don't want to be like, I'm just here, desperate to earn your business. It's like, no, I'm evaluating you as much as you're evaluating me. Not in a negative, judgy way, but in a way of like, let's make sure we're a right fit. Again, I might say, great, what's your first question? And then I would say, okay, now I have a question for you. And then I would ask them a question. So go ahead and take back the power. Give them some too, right? Like give them some leeway. But, it's kind of like the tug of rope, right? Like tug, what am I trying to say? Hopefully you understand. Like you don't just let them go and you don't just like follow along and be like, oh, I've lost my balance. Like, no, maintain your balance. Okay, good. I got a thumbs up.
I can see you smiling. You like that one. Okay, one last question from Stefan, and then I'll share something special with you guys as well, so stick around. So Stefan says, is there a way to bring a lead up the staircase through online copy in our sales funnel for our lower ticket items? I can assume one-to-one sales calls are reserved for high ticket programs.
Stefan, I love this question. So absolutely, one of the things you want to think about, and you can do this again, some of this can be done in one email even, but in the sales funnel, right, is like, are you doing something to pique curiosity? So one of the ways that you can also pique curiosity, so I gave you one way today, right, which was like how you answer questions. But one of the other ways is the question that you ask. So can you put a question in the email that gets them thinking? Because our brains are wired for questions. So I would put a question in email, because that now gives you like, we're on step 2, we're creating some curiosity. Because when you ask their brain a question, they are more likely to want to read like what comes next. So same with your, with your copy in a sales funnel. And then as far as like the discovery, you, instead of like, because we don't have the ability to ask them the question, one of the ways that you could put in the copy, like, this offer is for you when, and then you put the criteria, or you put some like, this offer is for you when you're sick and tired of having this experience and you want something else. This offer is for you when, and this is like a bulleted list. So now we kind of help them kind of do their own discovery, because now they're self-identifying like, yeah, that's me, that's me, that's me, that's me. Or like, no, that's not me. So delete, right? And then you issue the invitation for the offer. So is this something, so you lay out the offer in the email or in the sequence, and then you ask the question, is this something you'd like to take part in? Or does this offer make sense for you? Or would you like to take the next step, or sign up now, right? Like that. And that's the proposal / close in the email. So the answer is, that was a long way of me saying, yes, you can do it. And I hope the way I broke it down was helpful for you.
That was amazing, having a question. That could even be like a headline, I guess, then on a sales page. Like, are you struggling with this?
Yes.
Or something?
Yeah.
Okay. That's a thing. Thank you so much, Nikki. So if you are looking to get more people into the top of your funnel and looking to get more leads, then you need to be consistent on social media, as you all know. So if you haven't heard about SmarterQueue yet, we are a social media management tool that are presenting this amazing masterclass with Nikki. And she has a unique link for you. It's completely free to try out and test. What it's going to do is it's going to take all of your content into one place and automatically publish it across any social media platform that you like. And then you can see how well it's doing, how many clicks that you're getting, how many sales calls that you're having booked in. And it's really, really amazing to be able to do this effortlessly without getting sucked in to TikTok or Instagram. So Nikki has just dropped her link into the chat. With that, you'll get 30 days for free, no credit card needed. Try it out, test it, see if you like it, and let us know. You'll get a free onboarding call, a free social media strategy call, or if you are with another social media management tool, we'll also give you a free migration call. So any questions, let me know. Thank you so much, Nikki.
Thank you for having me. And thank you for everybody who showed up. I really appreciate your time and your attention.
Yeah, great questions, guys. Great questions. If you've got anything that you wanted to share with Nikki, where can they find you, Nikki, after? Where can they connect with you?
The easiest way is to grab that free resource, yoursalesmaven.com /buying signals. But I also have a podcast. So if you like to listen to a podcast, check out the Sales Maven podcast. And of course, you can just reach me via email, which is Nikki, Nikki, at yoursalesmaven.com. I'd be delighted to hear from you. Thank you.
Amazing. Thanks, guys. Thank you. Bye, everybody. Catch you next time. Bye. Hey.